Hey folks, this is Joe Cott for AET164 Test 1 review. So I just want to go ahead and kick it over to the screen share and you guys can follow along. So whether you have Revit LT or Revit for educational use, you're going to end up having a little bit of a different experience. So I'm using LT, that's why my screen might look different than some other people's. So the first step of the test, which you can find on D2L, is under the content tab under test 1, and you open up the document for part 1 and 2 and follow along. The first step is to save it as test 1 part 2 with your name and to change the backups of the file. So we open up Revit, we press new, architectural template, press OK. Some folks have been having a hard time switching from millimeters to feet and inches or metric to imperial, and you basically have to change your template file in Revit. And if you're having an issue with that, just let me know and I can send you the documentation on how to do that procedure. So once you have it open, you've created your new architectural template, you want to go to File, Save As. Step 2 of the test is to actually click Options, change the number of journals. So it was set to 10. I have set it to 5 as my standard. Set your interval. You might want that more often so you don't lose your work. I'm going to set it to 1 hour. Then you just press OK. That's step 2 of the test. We go back here and it says draw. Oh, part of step 1 is actually also, once you do that option, to save the drawing as a project. You want to save it as the project name, test 1, part 2, and your last name. So just come back into Revit, you can paste that in, save. All right, so now I have my file, it's saved, and you can save this file. I'd rather not use the Dropbox. I'd rather you just uploaded your files as PDFs like we always do, the digital sketchbook. But if you upload your 3D model to the Dropbox that's included in the test 1 link, that will work as well, either way. So once you've done that, first step is draw a 40 by 40 square using a generic 6-inch wall. So we can come up here to wall type. First step, it's set to generic 8. We want a generic 6-inch wall. You draw the square, do 40-foot square, and then it usually snaps. The snaps go to 40 feet. And then we want to dimension this, so we'll go over to annotate. Now, right now, the dimensions set to the center line of the wall. I think it'd be better if we did the overall dimension, so we can come over, press Tab when you hover over the wall and find the endpoint. You could also set the setting to wall face, then it will grab onto that wall face as well. So I don't even have my walls drawn right, it's at 46. So we want to select that wall and then change it to 40. We'll do the same thing on this side. Now I have my dimensions set to wall face, so it automatically picks the right place. And if you select the wall and then select the dimension string, you can change the number there. So now we have our 44 by 40 box as our next step. You want to dimension the square. All right. Offset the top and the left wall 15 feet. All right. So what they're asking for here, like the picture, we want to use the modify tool, the modify tab, and then click the offset command. And you can set that offset distance to 15 feet. That was the left wall. This is the top wall. And it didn't bring the whole wall. So in order to close the box, we want to do that. So the next step is to draw a vertical wall from the midpoint of the 15-foot. All right, so basically it's drawing a wall right here. One thing that it doesn't say in the test brief, and this is kind of why I'm doing this video, is that it doesn't really say that this wall needs to be trimmed out. It shows you a picture and you kind of just have to understand that. So you could pull the edge using the blue grips, or you could use the trim tool to trim the wall to enclose it. The next step was to draw a wall in the middle. So you find that triangle, that's the midpoint, and then you draw a wall in between the two walls you just offset. The next step after that would be dimension all of those walls. So we come back into our annotate tab. See, we are now going to the face of the wall. Typically, you go to the face of the stud in an architecture drawing. That way you get whole numbers. But what we want is for this piece to be 15 feet by 15 feet. So we'll make this 7, 7, 3, so that everything's nice and even. All right. We go back here to the next steps, add a door, and then save the file. So we're going to come over here to Revit and go to Architecture, Door. You should have one preloaded. This is a single flush, 36-inch door. And you just place it in the wall direction. If you want to change the direction, you can always hit the arrows. But after that, final step is to save and close the file. All right. So File, Save, and close that file. So now that file has been created. The next part is to draw something in Revit. Okay, so what you want to do is draw a 3D sofa using the same setup procedures. So we'll go back to Revit, New, Architectural Template. We're going to go to File, Save As, and save this as a separate name. Save as Project. The file name here is going to be Part 3. Part 3 with your last name. Go ahead and save that. You don't want to save it as a backup file. Definitely save it as a .rvt Revit file. So the first step here is to use detail lines, offset, and trim, and then to actually draw this sofa. So where I think there's a difficult step here that the test doesn't really talk about is you have to use detail lines to draw the sofa. So detail lines are under the Annotate tab, and they're right here. They're called detail lines and filled regions. So we select a detail line, and detail lines are like AutoCAD. You just kind of draw them around and they just show up. I'm drawing them to be 30 feet tall. I don't think that's quite right. So Control Z backs you out of that. Let's go back to the template. We want it to be a 6 foot by 3 foot, or 6 foot by 2 foot couch. So probably zoom way in here. Draw a 6 foot line. We're going to draw a 2'3" line. I think it's maybe 4 inches. We can actually use the offset tool to draw that. So we go over to Modify, Offset, and then we want it to be 4 inches of couch rail at the top of the couch. All right, and then we come back to detail lines again. This is very much like AutoCAD. You're just drawing lines to build up your drawing. It's very helpful when you have to make something look like it's in the model when it really isn't. We come back to Modify, Offset, click Offset again, and then we can close this in by drawing one last detail line. So now we want to trim these ends. We can do it by using the trim tool, or you can just select the line and pull it. So sometimes it doesn't want to show you the snap of the line. If you hover over it, wow, let's get out of there for a second. So it won't give me the snap on that line, which is odd to me. It looks like it is giving me a snap, but it's not the typical square, it's 2 arrows. So you want to select that, and now you've enclosed that. square. But let's go back and make sure we have the right dimensions. So it's 2'3" by 6'2". They don't say exactly what the couch rail is, but we went with 4 inches, so that works for me. Go up to the annotate tab and do the overall dimension. So right now the couch is a little bit too short, but we can change that. We got the right depth for the couch. If we select everything on the couch, so keep in mind, if you select from the right, everything your square touches becomes selected. If you select from the left, only what's inside the box becomes selected. So that can be really helpful when you're trying to pick out different elements. Then we're going to stretch this out so that it's 6'2". Once you've done that, it looks like there's another little piece down at the bottom that's 3 inches. It's a 3-inch where the cushion would be on the couch. So we'll come back up to detail lines. We can draw a 3-inch line, and the snaps will kind of do the rest of the work. And then it wants us to draw in this dimension as well. So click those 2 lines. And what I like to do personally is pull this out a little bit. Now, it kind of looks like their dimensions are different than ours in terms of size. So if we want to change that, we can come down here to scale and go from 1/8 to something a little bit bigger. Now it's at 1/4. It looks like it fits a little bit more to the scale of the drawing. We can clean these up by just grabbing and pulling them. And then there's one last dimension that it wants, and it's straight across the middle. All right. So now you've got that. Again, if you want to do a print screen or a screenshot of this and send that as a PDF, that's helpful, but you can also do it by saving the file one last time and then closing it. And you can submit that to the Dropbox. So those are the Dropbox, by the way, is located in that same content under test 1. You'll see part 3, the Dropbox here. Don't worry about the dates. If you guys are having a hard time or struggling getting through this, just try to get in as soon as you can. The due date is Saturday. So basically that's test 1. On quiz 1, it's a little bit trickier. There's a lot of questions there, so you're gonna have to get through that using the book. And I will check your answers just to make sure you turn it in, and it's basically a participation grade along with the assignments. So let me know if you guys have any questions at all, and I am happy to assist in any way that I can. Thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you soon.